Hello, everyone. I'm Dijon,
And I'm Aiara.
and welcome to the Mustardcast, the podcast about the art of storytelling and how it's used across different mediums. Make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe if you want to see our channel grow, and to click the notification bell so that you're notified when we post. As usual, we'll start with media we're consuming. Either you can start.
Alrighty. Of course, it was Saturday yesterday, so Nier Automata Saturdays. I feel like that goes without saying at this point. I started the Dono Hidoro manga because I was watching the anime adaptation, and I was like, let me read the manga first because I feel like I'll be more into it. Not to say that the anime adaptation is bad. I focus better on manga. Still working on Aquaman and Andromeda because I'm kind of a slow reader when it comes to comics and stuff. And I am watching a playthrough of Resident Evil 5. That's fairly interesting. Yeah, about it.
Yeah, we'll talk about more about Resident Evil later, and I'll add a note to talk about what a Resident Evil 5 remake could look like, because that could be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So, for me, so I've been watching. I'm sure everybody has heard of. Why am I forgetting the name of the channel? College Humor YouTube channel.
Oh yeah.
Like Drawfee used to be a part of College Humor before they split, and so they have a their own separate app called Dropout where they post a bunch of really good content. And I had been watching. I had stumbled across clips from that content, and then I stumbled across a bunch of clips from their D&D series, Dungeons and Dragons, and they do a bunch of different campaigns. And the current one that they're doing, Never After, which is like this like horror fairy tale series. The clips really interested me, so I watched the first episode, which was free, and it was fantastic. So I actually subscribed, not subscribe. I forget what they call it. I think they call it like joining as like a membership or something like that on YouTube on their channel, because you can also get access to their like app dropout app content through that. So I did that so I could watch Never After, and it's been good. And there was like a trailer for the next season, and apparently Matthew Mercer from Critical Role is going to be hosting the next season, so that's interesting.
Ooh.
Yeah, so I've been watching Trigun, of course. Season ended. We'll talk about that later. Attack on Titan. There was a episode on Saturday. Um, I've been watching Rocky and Creed again. Something I'll talk about later because I went to go see Creed 3 on Thursday. I've rewatched Wakanda Forever. Still great. Still a good movie. You saw it, right?
I have not
Uh,
actually.
well, there's a really good moment around like the end of the movie. It's just so good, and the music it hits. Um,
Ooh.
uh, Still watching Batman the Animated Series. There was this really creepy Poison Ivy episode where she was like creating like artificial plant children out of the using the DNA from an Arkham psychiatrist that she like tricked into letting her out, and they have like extremely short lifespans, but in their final stages they turn into giant plant monsters that she controls. And the imagery was horrifying, and there's been a lot of stuff like that in Batman the Animated Series. You watch it and go, man, this is a children's cartoon. um, but yeah, I finished my second playthrough of Dead Space and got the one gun trophy using just a plasma cutter, and I immediately jumped into a new game plus playthrough, but I stopped after I got to like chapter 4. It's not that long of a game, so I could easily run through it again. But I'm gonna give it a break. I'm too addicted to this game. It's truly making me feel like I'm 10 years old again, playing Uncharted 2 the first time. It's such a fun game.
And that's so real. You reminded me. Speaking of games, Limbus Company is out, and I've been playing that also. I was really excited for it, and I was kind of wary because again gotcha games, you know how they are. But it surprisingly the gotcha elements are not as important as the actual gameplay and story, and I'm like, wow.
Yeah, been playing Dead Island with my little brother, and I went and grabbed. I had to let him borrow Devil May Cry 5 because I have that on my Xbox. I went and grabbed that and started playing that again for reasons that I'll talk about later. So moving on to animation, I should have sent you this, but I forgot to. There's a there was a teaser for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem animated movie,
Ooh.
um, and there was a cast reveal. The cast is The cast consists of four newcomers, these young kids playing the Ninja Turtles, but then the rest of the cast is full of pretty much a bunch of celebrities. So, playing my favorite Ninja Turtle, Leo, is Nicholas Cantu. Playing Mikey is Shaman Brown Jr. Playing Donnie is Micah Abbey. Raph is Brady Noon. Splinter is Jackie Chan.
Huh.
April.
Interesting.
April O'Neil is Ayo Edebiri, who plays a character in The Bear. So I recognized her face and name immediately. April's gonna be black again.
Yay!
Superfly is being played by Ice Cube. Seth Rogen, who I think is producing this movie, is playing Bebop. John Cena is playing Rocksteady. John Cena also voiced like the main villain in the most recent cartoon.
Yeah.
Paul Rudd is Mondo Gecko. Natasha Dimitrov is Wingnut. Rose Byrne is Leatherhead. Post Malone is Ray Fillet.
Post Malone is crazy.
Animal Burris is Genghis Frog. Cynthia Utram. Oh, Utram. That's interesting. Utram is this race that Krang is a part of.
Gotcha.
She's being played by Maya Rudolph. It's weird that I don't know. I've never heard of this Cynthia Utram. And probably the best one, other than Jackie Chan, the second best one, Giancarlo Esposito is playing Baxter Stockman. Which he is perfect for Baxter Stockman, especially if they play him like a straight villain, which he usually is. Yeah. Gus Fring from what's that show called? Where they make drugs?
I'm
not
sure.
Breaking Bad. There we go.
I
forgot to name Breaking Bad for a second. But yeah, I'm excited for this. I like Ninja Turtles. The animation is that 3D models with 2D texture art style that we all know and love, and it just looks so good. And I'm so excited for it. I should have sent you the teaser. I'll have to send it to you later.
Okay.
But it's a very short teaser. It's not even high quality because it was like shown. The official trailer actually is coming out tomorrow, so we'll definitely be talking about it a lot more in the next episode.
Okay.
But what else we got in animation? Attack on Titan. So, do you watch Attack on Titan?
I used to, not as much anymore. But I am keeping up with the news just out of like curiosity.
You should watch it. It's real good. It's easily it's literally I think it's in my top 10 for sure. I don't know, but I'm pretty sure it's in my top 5 anime of all time.
Wow.
Attack on Titan is so good. It's ridiculously good. So after I finished season 3, like early in the pandemic, I went and read the manga. So I've read all of the manga. But the most recent episode was like a 1-hour special. It was very sad. A lot of sad stuff happened. And the next episode isn't coming out till the fall.
Wow.
But it was a good episode. And the next episode, if it's also an hour long, it'll probably be the last episode because there's not much left. It's almost finished. Attack on Titan's almost over. It's been a while. They've been really stretching out this season 4. They honestly should have just went the 5 seasons instead of stretching out the final season. They really went all in on calling it the final season. They shouldn't have done that. They should not have called it the final season. They should have just called it season 4. But
you know how Mappa is though.
Because now they're committing to that it's the final season, and every time there's a new season, it's not technically a new season, it's a continuation of the final season. It's so stupid.
That is just dumb.
But anyway, Trigun. Season ended. Have you caught up on it?
Nope. But now that it's over, it gives me time to catch up.
Yeah. The language used in the promotion for the final episode had a lot of people afraid that it was going to be like the final episode, like it was going to be the end of the series as a whole. But
no.
People were so scared, but after watching, it's definitely not the last episode. There's definitely going to be a second season. But yeah, it was just a bunch of backstory on Bash and Knives. But yeah, it was a good episode. I'm excited to see where they go. Like, the animation is so good. This is the type of show that people who, especially since this is a remake of a cult classic done in 3D animation, there's going to be a lot of people who either didn't want to watch it or don't want to watch it because it's 3D and because it's a remake of something old, and they're going to watch it and be hella surprised and be like, oh wow, 3D animation not only can it be good, it can be amazing.
Right.
Like, this is the type of show that is set up to be the worst thing possible and turns out to be amazing. And it's going to surprise a lot of like old school anime fans.
For real. It's like, let them cook. You know, sometimes change is good.
But in terms of comics, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, still reading that. In the beginning of the fourth volume, it's a very interesting crime story about two warring gangs and some crooked cops with Raph and Casey stuck in the middle. And this first issue was actually drawn by the OG artist from the comics. And he did a bunch of alternate covers for a majority of the previous issues, but now he's drawing full issues in volume 4.
Ooh.
So there was a Power Girl backup in one of the most recent DC like crossover events comics, and so because of that crossover, some stuff happened. I'm not going to describe that; it was weird. But she awakened psychic abilities, and with the help of a former Teen Titan, Omen, she's learning how to control them. And they've started a like superhero psychic therapy business. Don't worry, Omen is an actual licensed like psychiatrist with like a doctorate in counseling psychology. So it's not just two superheroes using their powers to counsel people. It's she's a professional.
Okay, good.
It's not just two unqualified superheroes doing this. But also reading Poison Ivy. I would describe this comic as floronic horror. And it inspired me to make some changes to a story idea that I have. I'll tell you about it later. I don't want to tell people on air, steal it. But it gave me so many cool ideas. They found a way to make plants look disgusting and horrible. Not unlike that Batman animated series episode I was talking about. And finally, The Flash. In the most recent Flash 1 Minute War special, we learned the origin of the Fraction, the alien race using the Speed Force to plunder planets of their resources. And we also got a glimpse into the future of the Flash, Wally West, and his son Jay, as the battle between the Fraction spans across time and space. And this older Jay can utilize the Speed Force for both increasing his speed and his strength. And a love interest has been introduced for him in the form of Gold Beetle, who is either Booster Gold or Blue Beetle's daughter. I don't know which one, but she took inspiration from both of them and became Gold Beetle. But yeah, that's all I got for comics. How about you?
I don't have anything. I'm still enjoying Aquaman and Andromeda a lot. Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow is next on my list. And someone actually recommended me a comic also. Let me see if I can find the name of it. I checked notes. It was... I forgot. I didn't write it down. But somebody recommended me something. I'm going to ask them again what it was. But yeah, it sounded really good. So I'm going to probably read that too. Cool. If I remember what it is, I'll let you know.
All right. So moving on to TV and film. So Sandman. I finished up Sandman. Episode 11 was one of my favorite episodes. The very final episode. It was more like an anthology. And I honestly wouldn't mind if the whole series was like this. The first half was animated and was about dreams creating hope told through the lens of cats.
Wow.
The second half, titled Calliope, had a killer bar from the titular character. She says, in reference to a question that Morpheus asked her, she says, by inspiring humanity to want better for themselves and each other, by rewriting the laws by which I was held, laws that were written long ago in which my sisters and I had no say. And the whole episode was a not so subtle reference to the hardships women go through. And that line encapsulated perfectly. And I was like, that was a good line. That line alone made me love the whole episode more.
That is a good line.
It was great. Madalorian season 3 has begun. Episode 1 featured a lot of Mandalorians. There was a lot of Mandalorians at the beginning of the first season, but then they all scattered and some of them got murdered. But now they're back and trying to like reform their clans. And they set up a lot of the goals and motivations of several of the characters that will definitely come back later in the season. I like Mandalorian. They've done some weird stuff with the Mandalorian lately, because there was a show called Book of Boba Fett that was like spinning off from Mandalorian because Boba Fett returned in canon in that show. And in that show, they resolved the biggest, how do I describe it? They resolved one of the biggest plot points in The Mandalorian in a show that wasn't his own. and that like a lot of people who watch The Mandalorian, a show that a lot of them most likely have not seen. So at the beginning of this season, a lot of people who didn't watch Book of Boba Fett because they don't have to, it really doesn't have anything to do with Mandalorian, are going to be so confused when they see this one major, it wasn't something small, major change that happens at the beginning of the season. I'm like, how did this happen? Why did this happen? This makes no sense. It was the dumbest decision I've ever seen. That whole show was a giant dumb decision. Everything about that show is weird. But The Mandalorian is great. And I hope the season 3 is just as great as the last two. So, last in TV and film, Creed and Rocky. So, the franchise is real good. Every movie is full of just so much heart, and Rocky 2 might have one of my favorite movie soundtracks of all time. The main Rocky theme by Bill Conti, Gonna Fly Now, makes you feel like you can take on the world. But my favorite track is Going the Distance. It usually plays after Rocky wins a fight, and it feels so congratulatory and like you're being handed an award. It's so good. I love it. The first 3 Rocky movies are great, but I don't like the 4th as much as a lot of people do. And that's blasphemous to a lot of Rocky fans because to a lot of people that's their favorite, and it's the one where he fights the Russian dude. So people love that movie, but to me it gets way too ridiculous and goes off the deep end. There's this weird robot. There's a robot in this movie. This movie about boxing that's set in the 80s. For some reason, there's a robot. It makes no sense. I don't hate it, but I don't like it.
Very strange.
So before I watched, I watched the first 3 Rockies all in one day, and then watched like the 4th one a couple days after. But even before that, I watched the first 2 Creeds, because I was gonna go see Creed, which was the Thursday before we're recording this, and it was incredible. It was Michael B. Jordan's directorial debut, and he's a huge anime fan, so he put a lot of anime influence into the fights, and it's really noticeable. There's some clear shout-outs to boxing anime like Hajime no Ippo, but also battles shown in like Dragon Ball. There's this one shot that's just straight up Dragon Ball, and I went to go see it with my little brothers, and one of my brothers was like, that was something out of Dragon Ball Z. And then after the movie was over, I told him like that was on purpose. He's a big anime nerd. Even when it comes to the story, Michael B. Jordan pulled inspiration from Naruto. When it comes to like the rivalry and hatred between old friends, he actually showed Jonathan Majors, who's playing his opposite in that film, like a fight scene from Naruto to like help influence like the story. But my favorite song, "Going the Distance," plays for the first time, as far as I can tell, in the Creed franchise, and I gasped and smiled so hard. I was like, "Oh my god, this is so good!" Yeah, no, these box movies, man, they're fun. I like them a lot.
Good.
Man, I'm looking at the clock and it says 19 minutes, and I'm like, that makes no sense. I don't believe you. Because I feel like.
Oh, did I tell you? Oh, go ahead.
No, what were you gonna say?
I was gonna say, did I tell you that I finished Vox Machina?
Oh no.
Yeah, I finished Vox Machina. This season was crazy. I have a lot of feelings, but a lot of stuff I don't want to talk about because it's like spoilers. But like, man.
Oh no, we can talk spoilers.
Oh, bet. So, first of all, that scene, Vaxeldan and the Matron of Ravens, that was my favorite part. That it went like the cinematography, the whole like the Matron's whole thing, like I don't know, something about it.
I feel like she was being unnecessarily antagonistic when the whole time she was just trying to help him.
For real. And it's like it's very funny to think about, but it's like honestly the fact that like the unnecessary like antagonism, I feel like it gave it a little bit of comic relief because it's like you did all that just to be helpful in the end. Come on now. I don't know. I really like that. It was so cool. And it like the fact that it tied back to like the opening with the golden thread, I was like, oh I had like a oh wow moment, you know?
Yeah. It was real good.
Real good. It's funny because I wasn't feeling season 2 at first. I was like, this is good, but it doesn't feel like Vox Machina. And then the last 3 episodes,
Yeah, no, for me, from the very beginning, I've been enjoying season 2 way more than season 1. I like season 1, but season 2 has just been so good, especially once we got to the Avatar stuff.
Yeah.
I was like, this is unnecessarily hype.
For real.
Yeah, and the stuff with Grog was fun too. It's
very fun. I'm glad that like this season gave him a little more depth, because it's like it kind of felt a little unfair that everybody else got their like character turning point moment, but Grog was still comic relief. Same with Scanlan in the season. I don't know. I like the characterization that they got.
Honestly, a lot of people, not a lot, but a decent amount of people hate Scanlan, and I don't get the hate for Scanlan. A lot of people at some point were comparing him to the grape dude from My Hero, and I'm like, he's nothing like him at all. He's nowhere near as bad. Like he makes dirty jokes, but he isn't straight up sexually harassing people. There's a difference, and I think that people are so used to that horrible like trope in anime that whenever they see someone who's hypersexual and making dirty jokes all the time, they can't help but think of those anime characters that are constantly sexually harassing people. But that isn't Scanlan. He just makes dirty jokes and everybody groans and go, okay, my guy, calm down. But he's never directly harassing people.
Right. And it's like, I don't know, it's just like, with Scanlan, like, you can tell that there's like a line drawn in the sand where it's like, yes, this is not sexual harassment. Like, it's cut point blank. Like, with that trope in anime, it's like sometimes it's funny, but then sometimes it gets very, very uncomfortable very, very quickly because they cross that line over and over again. With Scanlan, it's like, this is the line, we're not crossing it, but we're gonna toe it a little bit, and it's just refreshing to see.
Yeah, I like that too, because I was like, you can have a dirty character without them being being a predator,
right?
Like basically. Yeah, Scanlan is the blueprint for how you do those type of characters, and I like Scanlan. He's one of my favorite characters in the show.
Right. That whole thing with his daughter was crazy, though.
Yeah, that was wild.
Because like, I was first of all, like, I wasn't expecting his actions to come back to bite him at all. I was like, oh, he's the comic relief pervert guy. That's nothing's gonna come of that. And then something did very much, in fact, come of that. And how they played off like, oh, I remember your mother, blah blah blah, this whole story, and it wasn't even her to begin with. Like, crying, laughing. It was great.
Yeah, the longer it went on, the more I was like, this definitely isn't her. Yeah, Vox Machina is real good. I'm excited for season 3. Also, the animation on those dragons were real good. Like, I feel like the CG of the dragon in the first season was very noticeably CG, but this time it was still CG, but there were certain elements about it that helped it mix well with the 2D.
It felt a lot better, yeah.
And I feel like that was necessary when the main antagonists for the next couple seasons are going to be several dragons.
Yeah.
So they had to make sure that it looked good.
Yeah. Also, the Sphinxes were great, and I am sad at what happened to the... See, I don't even remember his name, because when I was watching it with my girlfriend, we called him Jamiroquai. I don't know why. That was just his name.
Jamiroquai, that's hilarious.
Yeah, and it's like, when he died, we were like, damn, Jamiroquai! But what happened to him was really, really sad, and I wish that it didn't happen, because he deserved better. Him and his little lady friend, they deserve to see each other at least once again. It was sad.
It reminded me of these two characters from God of War Ragnarok, and I don't want to spoil it. But I also forgot to mention, like, The Last of Us. You still haven't watched it yet, right?
Nope. It's on my docket, though.
Yeah, it's so good. It's so good. I would still suggest playing the game first if you can. But
I probably will.
Yeah, man, the show is just so good. Last episode was basically the DLC of the first game, but the DLC takes place in the same, like, it goes back and forth between the time period, what I'm trying to say, like the time slot of where it fits within the story. This is where it makes sense that it fits, because it goes back and forth between Ellie's past and the modern day and what was happening during then. But in this episode, they don't do it like that. They've spent the vast majority just in the past, and then at the beginning and at the end, they go back to like what's actually happening. But yeah, it was a good episode. But yeah, that's all I got for TV and film. Moving on to video games. This will probably take up our next hour because it's a lot of news. So I want to say there were Zelda leaks. I'm not going to say what the leaks are, but there were leaks. Well, the leak was an art book. Did you hear about the leaks?
I did not hear about the leaks.
Oh wow, really? The whole art book got leaked. The art book that's supposed to come with your pre-order bonus.
That is crazy.
Like the collector's edition art book got leaked, but because it's an art book that is supposed to come out like the day that the game also comes out, it doesn't have major spoilers in it. I would say that it has 2 maybe major spoilers of designs of 2 characters that look like they're going to be important. Right. One in particular, but other than that, they don't tell you who it is necessarily, and there's not like enough going on. And it I guess if you would call it doesn't spoil you any major game mechanics, but it like kind of confirmed a theory that a lot of people had when it comes to gameplay mechanics. And yeah, I looked through it because I didn't care.
That's true.
I didn't even. What were we gonna say?
I was gonna say I probably will not because I want the physical book in my hands. I'm very big on art books now.
Oh, yeah, same. I don't like buying art books digitally. I gotta have it physically.
Yeah.
But what was I gonna say? Oh, I didn't care, but then when I realized that they also weren't major spoilers, I was like, okay, I definitely don't care. But yeah, so just be careful out there, guys. Make sure you
definitely
mute Zelda and what is it? I was gonna say Breath of the Wild 2 and Tears of the Kingdom, just in case. So there was like another like trailer for Dead Cells Return to Castlevania, and you can straight up play as Richter.
Oh,
enforcing the idea of them making a Castlevania game. Speaking of which, there are rumors of a Metal Gear Solid 3 remake and a new Castlevania game. So this is all from a GameSpot article by Oisin Kunke, I believe that's how you pronounce it. According to Andy Robinson, speaking on the VGC podcast, Konami is planning to have a pretty big E3, claiming that a new Castlevania is set to appear alongside the much rumored Metal Gear Solid 3 remake. There's a new Castlevania in addition to Dead Cells DLC they announced at the Game Awards, Robinson explained, and there's this much discussed Metal Gear Solid remake, which I also expect them to finally show. In terms of the older Metal Gear Solid games potentially being playable on modern platforms, Robinson said that as of 1 year or 2 years ago, being told to do so in some shape or form was in the cards, but it's now less clear what the situation is. I would imagine that Metal Gear Solid 3, the remake, is going to be somewhat a test bed for that. Robinson said. He also noted that Konami is opening up to collaborating with more developers. Though it wasn't clear if he was just talking about Silent Hill series or the wider Konami portfolio. I mean, they've already teamed up with Dead Cells, and they're doing a Silent Hill remake with Blooper Team. So the fact that they're doing a remake of Silent Hill feels like it's likely that they'll do a remake of their most popular series, Metal Gear. So yeah, I'm excited. I love Metal Gear. I'm currently in the middle of playing the original Metal Gear Solid 3. I finished the second one not too long ago. Yeah, after I finished the second one, you heard me talk about it every single time we had a team meeting. Yep. I would bring it up. Yep. I love that game. I love Metal Gear so much. Like I just couldn't stop talking about that game. Metal Gear changed my life. Look, when I played Metal Gear Solid 4 a long time ago on my PS3, it changed my life. I love Metal Gear. It's so good. I hope they bring the originals to modern consoles so that people can play the originals as well. But that remake sounds like it's going to be good. If it happens, which I feel like it might. Because I feel like it's a no-brainer to do a remake of Metal Gear Solid 3. And I'm excited to see what the new Castlevania is going to be. If it's going to be more like those other like third-person action games that they made, or if it's going to be a side-scroller.
I hope it's a side-scroller.
Yeah, but I feel like I should mention an idea I had about remaking Metal Gear that I thought was cool. I'm going to go to Reddit real quick because I made a Reddit post about it and I need to see it to remember exactly what I said. All right, here we go. So, this is my idea about the order in which the Metal Gear games could get remade. And I have 2 because a lot of people in the comments have changed my minds about certain things. So, I started with Metal Gear Solid 3 as a no-brainer since it's the earliest in the timeline and is considered the best by most of the fan base. And then a Metal Gear Solid 5, either like a remaster or a director's cut, because some people say that Kojima never got a chance to finish it. So in a perfect world, Kojima will be able to come back and put the finishing touches on the game. But push comes to shove, it would just get like a remaster. Metal Gear Origins. Now this would be a remake of the first two Metal Gear games, not Metal Gear Solid, but Metal Gear and Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake. They would be one game. They were like MSX games on like PC, and they were like pixel games, and they were some like some of the earliest stealth games made. But they're completely different from all the other Metal Gear games. And this is of all the Metal Gear games, this is the one that could use a modern remake the most, because it's an old pixel game where you like hid behind boxes and stuff. So
right.
But there's an interesting story to tell in those games, and you could squeeze them all into one game and make a really good remake. Then it would go straight into Metal Gear Solid 1, and then 2, and then 4. Which, the reality is, 4 only really needs a remaster, because Metal Gear Solid 4 still looks good, despite coming out in like 2008, 2009. But it's stuck on PS3 because, I'm sure you know, the PS3 architecture and games like that just, they can't be made backwards compatible because the PS3 was weird.
Right.
So they would almost need to make a remake to bring Metal Gear Solid 4 to modern consoles. And if they were to remake it, Metal Gear Solid 4 is my favorite Metal Gear. It's one of my favorite games of all time. My third favorite game of all time, actually. But there are two things I would love for them to change. The first one, I'm not going to go into detail on, and it's this one romance that it's not a bad romance. It's the execution that's really weird. They could fix that. Secondly, though, this one is a gameplay change. The game, there's in the menu, you can buy guns. In the main menu, you just pause at any time and buy guns and ammo. I hate it. It makes the game too easy, and there's no way to turn it off because this is an old game. The accessibility features in this game are non-existent. So there's no way to turn it off. There's not really a way to adjust most things in that game because it's an old game. And I would love for them to make the Drebin shop, which is what it's called, because you get guns from a guy named Drebin, to make it more like something like the Merchant from Resident Evil 4 and Resident Evil 8, where he's at set locations on the map. And the only way you can get ammo is to either find ammo scattered about the map or going to that shop to buy ammo and buy guns. And they need to decrease the amount of guns you can buy by half because there are too many guns that are too similar to each other and are essentially a waste of money. And another thing is that you get way too much money way too fast, so you can buy the best weapons almost immediately once you unlock them. So that's another thing that messes with the kind of difficulty balance of the game. So it needs to be more like Resident Evil, where it's the good guns are expensive. There are less guns overall, so you don't feel like the changes between them are incremental, and that there are big changes every time you buy a more expensive weapon. But also at the beginning of the game, you get a gun that you can attach a grenade launcher, a shotgun. You can give it a scope. You can put a silencer on it. It's essentially an all-in-one weapon. And the problem with that is, what's the point of having the option to buy a bunch of different weapons if you got a weapon that can already do everything? I think that game should instead be like a new game plus weapon, where after you beat the game the first time, you unlock that weapon, or you either unlock that weapon way later in the game, because then having that gun at the very beginning kind of makes all the other guns null and void, because what do you need any other gun for if you got this modular gun?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I would change. That would make Metal Gear Solid 4. But anyway, going back to other stuff. So did you get a chance to check out that Dead Island 2 gameplay presentation?
I did. And something about it is very entertaining to me. Like, it feels very like goofy, silly, and I really like that about it. Like, you don't see very many zombie games that are like goofy, silly like that, and I really like it, especially the physics with the the dead bodies. They're very funny. I like it a lot.
Yeah, there was a 15-minute gameplay presentation a couple days ago, and it looks incredible. If I had a coin for every game with undead creatures that released in 2023 with dynamic gore systems that peel back flesh layer by layer, I'd have 2 coins. But it's weird that it happened twice. Dead Space has a similar system where when you shoot them, you see the damage happen to them by the skin goes away, then fat, then muscle, and then bone, and then you sever the bone and the limbs fall off. And Dead Island has a very similar system that I think they just call it the gore system. But yeah, it's weird that 2 games have done that this year. There's a lot of good survival horror this year. Dead Space,
Yeah.
Dead Island, Resident Evil coming out the 24th of this month. I can't wait. We get closer every day. I'm so excited. Yeah, this game looks good. So they've added things that me and my little brother have desperately wanted in the first game, which is a drop kick and a dodge. We every time we want to just run up and drop kick zombies, and there's a pseudo dodge in the first game that you can perform by jumping in different direction. But now there's a proper dodge mechanic, and like you said, they've gone all in on the goofiness of the series and added wild weapon creations, and similar to like Dead Rising, which is another goofy zombie series, but that franchise kind of fell off.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Capcom is bringing back a lot of things. I wouldn't be surprised if they did a Dead Rising 1 remake.
That would be fun. That would be really fun.
Honestly, before that though, I want a Devil May Cry 1 remake. I'm gonna be real with you.
That's real.
We're going to talk about some Capcom remakes in a minute though. But before we get there, Final Fantasy 16. Did you get to check out that gameplay?
I did not. I didn't even know that Final Fantasy 16 was a thing.
Wait, what? You didn't know Final Fantasy 16 was a thing? So
I honestly stopped counting with Final Fantasy after I think 13, whichever one is the MMO. I was like, all right, that's yeah.
That was 14, and a lot of people from that team are actually working on this game, but it's nothing like Final Fantasy 14. So Final Fantasy 16. So the story and the premise is inspired by Game of Thrones. It's set in Velistea, a world divided between 6 nations who hold power through access to magical crystals and dominance. Dominants are humans who act as hosts for icons, which essentially this game's versions of the summons. They're essentially like the... Wait, how much of Attack on Titan have you seen?
I've watched the first season, but I know all the stuff that happens because people like to put stuff on the internet.
Okay, so the icons are the equivalent of like Titan shifters. So tensions between the nations escalate as a blight begins consuming the land and starting to like destroy their resources. So they're fighting over the resources of these magical crystals that give them ether, which is like the magic source in all of the Final Fantasy games. The main character, Clive Rosefield, guardian to his younger brother Joshua, witnesses his kingdom get destroyed and goes on a revenge quest in pursuit of the dark icon Ifrit. So, a former Capcom dev, specifically a combat developer from Devil May Cry 5, is the head combat director on this game. His name is Ryota Suzuki. And that's why I've been playing Devil May Cry 5 out of hype for Final Fantasy 16. And it shows because it straight up plays like a character action game. Like 100%. You need to, like, I don't know, play some gameplay in the background on mute while we talk about this because you just have to like actually see it. So yeah, it just next what do we have? I lost my train of thought for a second. So they're doing difficulties and like very differently than any other game. Like there aren't difficulty options. There's 2 options. There's like story mode and like gameplay mode. Like whether you're playing it for the gameplay or you're playing it for the story. And to make the game more accessible to people who aren't used to character action games, there are 5 accessories that will make the combat easier, but you can only equip 2 at a time. One that slows down time to make parries easier. One that auto controls Clive's dog companion Torgal. One that automatically uses potions for you when your health is low. One that automatically dodges incoming attacks. And one that performs auto combos with repeated presses of like a single button. So they essentially just have you choose like 2 of those and you're good. So like if you aren't good at doing combos, you get that. And if you aren't good at dodging, you add the dodging one, and then you're just destroying everybody with your attacks and you're not getting hit by anything. And if you don't want to have to do potions, you just put the auto potion on so you don't have to worry about that.
Right.
But the boss fights shown, it was really just one boss fight. The boss fight shown in the preview was dope. And I'm so mad you didn't watch it because it was so good.
I'm sorry.
It's so good. You would be so hyped if you saw it. The boss fight shown in preview. It was the main character versus the icon of Garuda, and it's literally just Attack on Titan, because there's literally a shot that 100% I have no doubt was inspired by Attack on Titan, because it's literally shot for shot, like a shot from Attack on Titan where Eren loses his arm and he's going to punch Reina and his arm grows back, and the same thing happened in this, where he gets his arm blown off, but it starts to grow back and regenerate as he's going for a punch, and it's literally the same camera angle and everything. It was so good. It's basically, it's like it was literally like a God of War boss fight. That's exactly what it was.
Oh, wow.
It was like a God of War boss fight, and it was so good. And every icon boss battle will be different gameplay mechanics. Like for example, the interviewers were told that, for example, Phoenix is going to play like a rail shooter. You're going to be able to control the icon of Phoenix and fly around. It's essentially going to turn into Star Fox.
Ooh.
So I'm so excited to see what the rest of these boss battles look like, because I love God of War type boss battles. They're just so fun. I like fighting big monsters. There's just one part where, so you fight her in stages. First you just fight her as a human, then she like halfway transforms and like sprouts wings, because Garuda is the icon of wind. And then at one point she fully transforms, but you don't transform into your icon yet. So you're just fighting this like literally the size of like a Titan from Attack on Titan, like 16-meter tall monster that's like kneeled on the ground, swinging its giant claws at you. It's so dope. Then he finally transforms into his Titan, or I'm calling him Titan now, his icon, and they just fight, and it's so good. It's so fun. You have to watch it eventually. It's so good.
I'm looking at it right now. This does look super fun.
I'm so excited for this game. It comes out June 22nd.
Oh, dope.
I'm trying to think. Is there anything else that come out that month? I can't remember. Oh, Street Fighter. Speaking of Street Fighter 6. So PlayStation had a state of play, and they showed off the final 3 Street Fighter 6 characters, the returning World Warriors, Zangief and Cammy, alongside newcomer Lily. They all look good, you know. Cammy is, you know, Cammy, so everybody's thirsty. You know, she's only second to Chun-Li, maybe most likely above Jury, but maybe not. But yeah, and Lily's new character, she's like a Native American, and she's not related to, but a part of like the same tribe as an older Street Fighter character that showed up in Street Fighter 2. And Zangief, he's the wrestler of the game.
Right.
I'm excited for Street Fighter 6. So those are 2 games I'm going to be playing a lot of in June. And I'm definitely going to have an episode where I invite some people some friends of mine who play like fighting games heavy to talk about it. I'm holding off on watching the Street Fighter 2 animated movie until June, because I want to talk about that on that Street Fighter 6 episode.
Gotcha.
So, again, talking about those Capcom remakes, did you check out the Resident Evil 4 gameplay?
I did.
Yeah.
Great.
So, you know, the original Resident Evil 4 revolutionized the third-person shooter genre, and it's considered one of the greatest games of all time. And it looks like the remake is going to 100% live up to that legacy. Just like every Resident Evil 7 game since, I'll say Resident Evil 7 game, every single Resident Evil game since 7, a demo will be releasing sometime soon, especially since the game comes out 24th. It's probably going to be a couple weeks before the game comes out that it releases. But like a week after the state of play, they showed the gameplay that I sent you earlier. So they showed even more gameplay. They sent it like a 20-minute gameplay video to press. And I'm honestly one review away from pre-ordering it. All I got to do is see like 1 or 2 reviews, which I'm sure people are going to say it's great. So yeah. I'll just wait. I always wait till the last minute to pre-order so that I could so that I can pre-download it. That way I don't have to at 12 o'clock at midnight wait for it to download. No, it's already downloaded. As soon as midnight hit, I start playing it.
Right.
That's the only reason I pre-order things. I pre-ordered the day of, or like the night before. So they added a parry mechanic to the knife that adds so much to the game's combat. Literally, you can parry crossbow bolts. So it started off as a one-time mechanic in a boss fight. The boss fight used to be just a series of quick-time events in the original game. Mm-hmm. But for the remake, they wanted to be more interactive and have it to be a proper boss fight rather than a series of quick-time events. So they made it a knife fight. Well, it was always a knife fight, but now it's a actual knife fight that you control. And the parry mechanic was so good that they decided to just put it into the whole game. That's how the parry mechanic was introduced in this game. It was for one boss fight, and then he said, "You know what? We're gonna add it to everything." The game releases March 24th. I'm excited. But let's talk about the potential of like a Resident Evil 5 remake.
Resident Evil 5 remake, yay!
Yeah. so I've played Resident Evil 5. I haven't played it to completion, but I definitely watched people play it almost all the way through. It's a fun game. But similar to Resident Evil 4, the thing that holds it back is that you can't move and aim. That wasn't a thing in Resident Evil until Resident Evil 6, which people, so a remake like literally of Resident Evil 5 would benefit most from just you being able to move and aim.
Right.
I have almost no doubt they're gonna remake Resident Evil 5, because the thing is, Resident Evil 5 isn't that old. It came out around like what, 2011 maybe? No, it came out. That's not true actually. I think Resident Evil 6 came out around 2011. I think Resident Evil 5 came out around like 2008.
Gotcha.
Or 2007. So it's around that time of like a Metal Gear Solid, where games from around that time period still look good. Like I think Ninja Gaiden came out around the time period. God of War 3. God of War 3's had a remaster. It's like all it needed was a remaster. It didn't really need a remake. So like games around that time still look good, but mechanically, a game like Resident Evil 5 still is a little old. So I feel like it could benefit from a remake, and they could also tighten up the story a little bit. Because something they're doing with Resident Evil 4 is they're not like, and this is something that a lot of people are hype about, is that they aren't completely getting rid of the corniness of the original and like the kind of goofiness, but they are at the same time, while holding on to a lot of that, making it a lot more serious and focusing more on Leon's trauma and making it a little scarier. And Resident Evil 5 was the first step to them going straight up action, which people weren't the biggest fan of. Like Resident Evil 5 had like mixed reactions, and so did 6. And I feel like a remake could kind of remedy that, and it could make it a little bit more scarier. They 100% should keep the co-op. Do not get rid of the co-op. The co-op is like the best part of that game. I had a lot of fun playing it with my brothers, and yeah, just being able to move and shoot would add so much. And you could, a lot of people aren't the biggest, like a lot of people recently have been coming out talking about how they don't really like Chris like that. They don't, like, a lot of people don't hate him. They just think he's boring, which is fair. He's just, military white guy, which is fair. But I feel like this game, being the second Resident Evil game where you play as Chris, could really help elevate his character and make people like him more and make him more interesting.
Definitely.
As well as this game, I don't know how much of the game have you seen. I don't want to spoil it for you.
I've seen it's a playthrough that my two friends are doing. I'm watching them play co-op because why not? I've seen up to like the chainsaw guy boss. That's it.
Does a character from the past show up at any point?
She's mentioned.
Who?
Jill Sandwich, my beloved.
Jill Sandwich. Okay, well, that's another character that they could expand on even more in a remake, is Jill. So,
right.
And there's other characters in there that I won't spoil that they can expand on as well.
Gotcha.
So yeah, there's a lot they could do with a Resident Evil 5 remake. And if they eventually decide to remake Resident Evil 6, they would most likely just change almost everything about that game. Similar to like Dead Space 3, where like a lot of people are like, remake Dead Space 2, redo Dead Space 3, because a lot of people don't like Dead Space 3. So yeah, I'm excited for Resident Evil 4.
Yeah.
Last but not least, Suicide Squad: Kill the Justice League. This game releases in May. And at the State of Play, they capped it off with this. They describe it as a third-person action shooter. It takes place 5 years after Batman Arkham Knight, and it takes place in that universe, if you didn't know. And it is a live service game, meaning that it will continue to be supported after launch with new characters and levels being added, alongside a battle pass for cosmetics only, they say. There's also a loadout system, seeing as it's primarily a shooter. And this, understandably, concerns everybody. A lot of people aren't a big fan of this direction that they're taking. Ryan McCaffrey from IGN put it better than I ever could. He said, Rocksteady's Batman games had stealth, detective work, combo-driven melee combat, vehicles, a great story. This next part I don't fully agree with. Brilliantly moody art direction it did, but that doesn't mean that every game should have moody art direction, because not every superhero is as moody as Batman. But he also says, I guess I'm just disappointed that after 8 years, this is what Rocksteady wanted to make. He had another live service co-op shooter, which he didn't say this, but I'm adding this. But we have like dozens of those. We didn't need another, especially when it comes to superheroes. We didn't need another.
Yeah.
I want to give Rocksteady the benefit of the doubt because their last 3 games were so good. But what's disappointing about the direction Rocksteady is taking Suicide Squad is that everybody just wanted another story-focused action game that makes you feel like a superhero or supervillain in this case. But instead, we're just getting a generic-looking co-op shooter that's going to be live service. Nobody wanted this. No one said, okay, well, it's the same thing with the Avengers game. Like, when I say I want an Avengers game, not once did anybody ever think I wanted an online co-op, constantly adding new content every year type game. No one wants that. When we want a superhero game, we want Batman Arkham City. We want Spider-Man PS4 and Spider-Man Miles Morales. Those are the type of superhero games we want. A game where that's focused on you or making you feel like that superhero. That's really giving you that power fantasy. Because at the end of the day, the best superhero games give you that power fantasy of feeling like that superhero from the beginning. The first time you start fighting bad guys in Batman Arkham Asylum, you immediately feel like Batman. The first thing you do in Spider-Man PS4 is swing on his webs. That's literally the first thing you do. The first button you press is R2 to swing. Every single one of these games, these 2 games that are considered the best superhero games ever, the first thing you do is just be that character. Nobody wanted a co-op shooter Suicide Squad game. It's so weird. So, I have some ideas about how I think they could have done it better. I have 2. So the first one is, first and foremost, make it a campaign-focused game and remove the live service element. If that means also removing the co-op, so be it. As long as the campaign is the focus and it functions great as a single-player game, everything's going to be okay. Secondly, make every character more unique. In the current game, they all feel the same, but with different mobility options. So in addition to the different mobility options they do have, I think Deadshot should have been the only shooting-focused character with like a modular sniper rifle that can switch between a sniper rifle and assault rifle. King Shark should have been all melee. He should have just had like some type of melee weapon if they want. Like in the trailer, they show him having like these like hook blades, and that should have just been what he had. Harley should be a mix of both. She should be like ranged with like pistols because that's we don't usually see her with like machine guns or anything like that. So she should be using like pistols and submachine guns, like just one-handed weapons, in combo with her baseball bat and / or her giant mallet, whichever one they decide to use. And finally, Captain Boomerang should have been like a mid-range character who with just like a bunch of different type of like novelty boomerangs, like exploding boomerangs and stuff like that, with his basic like projectile being similar to like Genji in Overwatch. He just throws throwing stars, like boomerangs, basic projectiles that he just throws boomerangs. Like that's what it could have been. Alternatively, if it still has to be a third-person shooter, first and foremost, you have each character take up a specific class. That way, they're all more unique. For example, Deadshot is the only person that can use sniper rifles. In the game, that is not the case. Everybody can use sniper rifles. Harley should have been like your all-rounder who uses mostly assault rifles, and some pistols maybe. King Shark should have been the tank who uses big guns like machine guns and rocket launchers, while Captain Boomerang is like the nimble assassin who uses like pistols and submachine guns in addition to his boomerangs. But also on top of that, and this is where they could have took even more inspiration from Overwatch, you give them like ultimate attacks that make them even more unique. Like for example, maybe King Shark's ultimate is that he goes into a rage mode where he puts away his guns and he just uses his fist or whatever weapon he has and does powerful melee attacks that does like AoE damage. Captain Boomerang would switch from his guns to unlimited explosive boomerangs for a short period of time, and he's just tossing explosive boomerangs. And Deadshot could have something similar to like Cassidy or Soldier 76, where he gets an auto lock on or like one-shot kills with his guns. And Harley's a mixed one. It's harder for me to come up with ideas what she can do, but I have she either releases a canister of like Joker gas that stuns enemies, and she pulls like her mallet or her bat and starts beating the hell out of them, or she summons like her 2 pet hyenas and they like attack people. Honestly, Overwatch is kind of the blueprint for when it comes to hero shooters. They literally started the genre of hero shooters. If you want to make a hero shooter, look at Overwatch. That is how you do a game, a superhero game where it is primarily, first and foremost, a shooter. That game is a shooter through and through, but it's a first-person shooter specifically through and through. But each character is extremely unique. This game is not that. Every character feels the exact same, except that Captain Boomerang has like a gauntlet that has the Speed Force, so he can access that and run and like move faster. King Shark can jump really high because he has super strength. Deadshot has a jetpack, and Harley Quinn has like a grapple gun. Like she essentially stole one of Batman's grapple guns, and that's their mobility options. And that is the most difference you get between the characters are those mobility options. Other than that, they're all the same character, and that sucks.
Does suck.
That sucks bad. It's disappointing. I don't know how they got here. It's weird. They make three great superhero games, and finally, they're doing the one thing that everybody wanted. DC is finally making a superhero game that isn't about Batman, because they have so many good characters that would make good games. And then they do Suicide Squad, which everybody's like, okay, we didn't necessarily want Suicide Squad, but we'll wait and see what it's like, and then we see what it's like, and it's this.
Yeah.
Personally, I really want top 2 for me is Superman, Flash. I want a Flash game and I want a Superman game. People are so weird about Superman game. I don't know if we've discussed this on podcast before, but I think we've like discussed this personally before about how people say Superman game is hard to do, but it's not. People just overthink it. They're always going, but Superman, he's so OP, he's so strong. Bro, Superman's not real. It's not that deep if Superman has a health bar, my guy. It's a video game. He has to have a health bar. He has to. He can't just be omnipotent. And first and foremost, he's already an extremely inconsistent character. It's not like he's always a god. Sometimes he's weaker. Sometimes he's stronger. In this story, he would just be weaker. And that's okay. Right. Literally, he would have a health bar. That's fine. And people are always like, well, how are the enemies going to hurt him? This man has existed in comics for almost 100 years and has been getting and is always getting hurt somehow. I swear to God, when people say stuff like this, they're either purposely being obtuse or they are just idiots. Or, and the last option is the one I always say, and I don't care how rude it sounds, the people who say this type of stuff lack the creativity that is required to be an artist. They just do. To work in the game industry or to just make something unique in general. Because it's such an easy thought process. Like, okay, how do you make an enemy that hurts Superman? Make them a robot, make them a metahuman, give them kryptonite, one of the many types of kryptonites that hurt Superman, or make them someone who's as strong as Superman, or make them an alien. Boom, 5 options right there. It's so simple. It's not that hard. There are enemies that hurt Superman all the time. It's not hard. Or give them weapons that were like handmade to be able to hurt Superman. It's not that hard. It's so easy. And a Flash game, I feel like you have to find a good balance between how fast he runs. It 100% has to be open world. You cannot have a Flash game that isn't open world because you want to be able to just run around. A Flash game has to be just as fun to run around in a Flash game as it is to swing around in the Spider-Man game. That has to be like the best part of the game. You have to really make running feel good, but also not too fast, but also not too slow. And also has to be room for you to upgrade the speed. So that one's a little bit tougher, but I think it's possible. But yeah, that's all I got. Any superheroes you would like to see in a game that would be cool? Wonder Woman.
Let me think.
Wonder Woman is getting a game. That was announced a while, like last E3, but that's all we've seen about it. Which finally.
I would like to see an Aquaman game. I don't know. I'm really into him.
Oh my God.
I would like to see an Aquaman game. A good Aquaman game.
You don't know how bad I also want an Aquaman game. Like just below Superman Flash is Aquaman and Green Lantern. Like an Aquaman game where they obviously would have to take.
Also go hard.
It would have to take place mostly underwater, but I feel like there would also have to be some place where we can like go up on land or just up on top of the water and maybe like jump on some ships and fight people on ships or like save ships or stuff like that. But an Aquaman game could be could be so fun.
Honestly, it could have elements like Subnautica, I feel like.
For sure.
And that would be really fun.
But the way I imagine a Green Lantern game being is that it would not be like the game I would compare it to is like No Man's Sky, but it wouldn't be like No Man's Sky in the sense that there's like unlimited planets. I think that's too much. There would be like a set number of planets. Maybe there's like 3 different planets that you go to, that you travel between, and you go in between fighting in space and going to these planets and stuff like that. And I think that would be cool.
That would be super cool.
And the way I imagine the gameplay working is similar to Infamous, where like in those games, it's a mixture of melee combat with like projectile combat. So like you shoot, just like green energy beams from your ring, while also like being able to make constructs. But then a big part of Green Lantern is the fact that each Green Lantern is like makes their own like unique constructs. So I would say that the Green Lanterns have, you have your ability trees and all that, but there's specific like types of cosmetics you can get for different attacks. Like say your melee weapon, you can choose between different like cosmetics for that weapon. Like it can be a bat, it can be a hammer, it can be like a sword or something like that. And I think that would be fun. And the 2 Green Lanterns, I would have it be either co-op or you play as 2 different Green Lanterns. And the 2 Green Lanterns I would choose are Kyle Rayner and Jessica Cruz. Jessica Cruz is a newer Green Lantern. And Kyle Rayner I think he came about around like the 80s. He actually, funny enough, before we wrap this up,
Okay.
the term fridging comes from comic books. It specifically comes from a Green Lantern comic book where trigger warning about violence, but his girlfriend gets murdered and shoved in a refrigerator for him to find when he comes home.
Oh, yikes.
That is where the term fridging comes from. That is so wild.
It is really wild. You learn something new every day.
When I discovered that, I was shook. I was like, wow, that makes sense. I understand why they would call that fridging. But anyway,
yeah,
that's all I got.
Oh,
That's
also a Justice League Unlimited video game would be super cool. I just love Justice League Unlimited. That's like one of my favorite cartoons of all time.
Let me tell you something. I'm glad you said that. Because a Justice League Unlimited game, I could imagine being like Marvel's Ultimate Alliance, where it's like an isometric action game where you could choose between a bunch of different superheroes. But Gotham Knights, right?
Right.
Didn't do well. I think a lot of that might have to do with what they were tasked to do versus what they actually wanted to do, which tends to happen in the game industry a lot. But I think that they've built a really dope groundwork for a Teen Titans game.
Ooh.
I think that even if it was all the gameplay was the exact same, I think that if Gotham Knights was a Teen Titan game instead, I might have liked it more.
Real.
The question is, I think you obviously do the most famous team, even though I would prefer if they did the original Teen Titans, which was like Robin, Kid Flash, Aqualad, Wonder Girl, and Speedy, which is Green Arrow's sidekick. But they would obviously do the iconic team of Robin, Beast Boy, Cyborg, Starfire, and Raven.
Right.
And that's fair. I would understand that. And they also, I feel like, might be a little bit more diverse to play as. And that would just be so fun, being able to play as those 5 characters. And I'm trying to think, making it co-op would be difficult. Instead, I feel like it could be something like Final Fantasy, where you play Robin is like the main character, but you can switch between. But like when you get into like a combat situation, you can switch between the characters. I also don't think it should be open world. I think that a Teen Titans game should be like a what's the term? Linear game.
Yeah.
I think they could have a Teen Titans game that takes place in San Francisco, where their headquarters usually is, and it's open world. I think it's possible, but I don't think it needs to be open world. I think it would be perfectly fine if it was like a linear game.
Right.
It's weird that the Teen Titans is like popular. People like the Teen Titans. It's weird that we haven't had a Teen Titans live action movie or a Teen Titans video game that wasn't like based off the cartoon, like an original like AAA Teen Titans video game. I'm surprised they haven't done that. They should. They should make a Teen Titans video game. Get WB Montreal to make a Teen Titans video game, and like expand on all the like stuff that they started on with Gotham Knights. Okay, now that's all I got.
That's all I've got too.
Okay. So my ads are below me. You'll find Aiara's ad below them and the Mascara's ad below that. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel if you want to see more storytelling content, and to click the notification bell so that you're notified when we post. Peace.